Hi there, my name is Chee-Wee and I'm a physiotherapist. In my day job, I'm also a lecturer and I teach physiotherapy and research in a university in the United Kingdom. In my spare time, I'm an amateur musician and I dabble in various instruments and in various types of ensembles for perhaps the past 20 odd years. Now, this video is about what are some of the reasons why musicians actually get injured. Perhaps I can tell you a story as to how I came to what I'm interested in this particular topic. Now, what first drawn me to injuries suffered by musicians was when I was an undergraduate at King's College London. So one day I was sitting in the beautiful King's College London chapel, sitting there contemplating perhaps about my future. And then I heard this lovely music coming from piano that was situated at that particular time in the chapel itself. When I heard that music, obviously I naturally gravitated to it. And I found out there was actually a pianist, a musician that was playing the piano. So I started chatting and struck up a conversation with the pianist. And what I found out was that the pianist is actually a music student currently studying conducting at King's College London in the music school. And through having the chat with him, I found out that his performing career was cut short because of his injuries that he suffered from his performance that he actually suffered, and more specifically, repetitive strain injury. At a point in time, as I wasn't very familiar with performance-related injuries that musicians suffered, but it did dawn on me that injuries can have a huge impact on a musician's life and their aspirations. So as I went away and started researching a bit more about performance-related injuries by musicians, I found out that up to 67% of music students actually have experienced performance-related injury at some point in their lives. And these figures increases and gets worse for professional musicians. Up to 80% of professional musicians actually suffer from performance-related injuries. This shows that performance-related injuries is a serious problem that needs tackling. So which comes back to the purpose of this particular video. What are the reasons why musicians get injured? And what did they do to actually get it in the first place? If we can find that out, we can actually try to prevent some of these injuries. But before I continue, now, if you'd like me to continue making videos to help you to learn more about performance-related injuries or related topics, please do click on the subscribe button and the like below. And to help me create content that is relevant to you, please leave a comment and tell me what future videos you would like me to make as well. Now, on to the reasons why musicians get injured. Now, here are some of the main reasons. Reason 1, long hours of practice. As I was reading a bit more into the research surrounding performance-related injuries, the first reason that I found out didn't actually surprise me at all. That is, long hours of practice. Now, musicians are disciplined people and they want to excel and be the best in their craft. So they would put in as much time as they can into their practice. Now, professional musicians and students can spend on average about 4 hours per day in deliberate practice. To put that into a bit of context, an interesting comparison is to compare it with the amount of time that elite athletes actually spend in their training. However, the main difference between elite athletes and musicians is that athletes have the support and the healthcare and training infrastructure to help them to present and cope with training-related injuries. Now, this is almost a given for an athlete that is competing at a slightly more professional level. However, in contrast, musicians actually lack this infrastructure, and the emphasis on supporting musicians' longevity in remaining in their careers is actually much less, much less, and this is quite unfortunate. Now, the second reason why musicians get injured is the sudden increases in playing time. Now, think about your own life. Have you ever been in a position where you've been away for your holidays for more than a week, and when you get back, you're refreshed, and all raring to go into your back to your practice again. You launch into your usual long hours of practice time routine. Now, this situation that I've described to you is equivalent perhaps to a person not being in the gym for more than a week and suddenly going back again and starting to do very heavy training again. Now, usually what happens is the person's body will ache and perhaps protest and make it known to you that the muscles and joints are in pain. Now, although this may or may not happen for a musician, this doesn't mean that the musician's body isn't actually going through any less stress. In fact, the musicians actually go through a similar amount of stress to their bodies, and this would add up and increase the musician's chances of long-term injuries. Now, there are many situations that musicians find themselves in that causes a sudden increase in playing time. And some situations are, firstly, looming deadlines in a public performance or exam, sudden inspiration to want to practice a new technique or piece, some intensive music retreat or camp where they actually are in it and suddenly their practice time starts to increase, or, as I said before, a recent return from holidays or break. Now, the main thing in such a situation is to avoid a sudden increase and to try to slowly ease yourself back into your usual hours of practice. So perhaps have a 1 week easing in plan that perhaps slowly increases your practice time and intensity of your playing for, say, the first week or so. And this will give your body some time to ease back in. So now on to the third reason, poor posture. I think this particular reason why musicians get injured is well known and experienced by every musician. Now, all of us have been there, and it is sometimes really difficult to correct for this. Now, our teachers have told us, people have told us, in fact, everybody have told us about poor posture. But when you're playing for a really, really long time and just want to get comfortable, it's actually really hard to be in a good posture. Or maybe you're in the groove of things, and in that state of flow, the music becomes the only thing that surrounds you, and you forget about everything else around you, including your own posture. Many factors can cause poor posture. Firstly, tiredness, or perhaps environmental restrictions like a small or cramped practice spaces, which a lot of us have experienced. Loss of motivation, or sheer habit that we always done it a certain way. Or we actually adopt a posture because we want to look cool or look like someone we admire. And a very common one that we all do is we change our positions to avoid pain. Now, perhaps these are topics for another video, but I think the crucial thing to do about posture is to have reminders for ourselves during practice. Something that I do for my own playing posture is to do what dancers do in a studio. Now, practice in front of a mirror. Now, I use it for my own practice, but also for my children as well. Now, I've installed a mirror in rooms where we usually practice so that we can see ourselves playing and adjusting our posture as accordingly. Now, this is what I've chosen to do, but you can be creative and use other forms of reminders. Now, on to the fifth reason, insufficient rest breaks. I think all of us are guilty of this, not taking enough rest breaks. The reason why rest breaks are important is because bodies are not machines and it can't keep going without stopping. Many people say that we should be guided by our bodies as to when to have a rest. Now, that is good advice. However, this is probably more appropriate when you are recovering from an existing injury. Now, when we don't have any health issues or injuries, our bodies can be fairly resilient, so the fatigue and damage can accumulate without us actually knowing. And we can continue to play for a fairly long time without our bodies actually feeling any strain. So relying on our bodies telling us that there is something wrong can be actually very, very misleading. Which is why I said perhaps stopping and letting your body tell you when to stop is perhaps not such a good idea. Now, we need to be more preemptive about taking rest and I'll talk about how we can do this slightly later on. Now, of course, playing music isn't just about the physical. There is also a mental aspect as well. And our capacity to maintain concentration decreases rapidly at perhaps roughly about a 30 or 45-minute mark. Similar to when I would be giving a lecture or a seminar, and at the 30 to the 55th minute mark, I can see my students dying away, dropping like flies. So what we want to do for our minds is to keep it as fresh as we can during our practice to maximize any learning and performance improvements. Now, so what can we do about rest breaks? How often should we actually take rest in between breaks? Now, one guide is after every 45 minutes to 1 hour of practice, you can probably take about a 15-minute break. Now, of course, this really depends on your circumstances. If you're in an ensemble, a band, or an orchestral setting, now this rest plan is much more difficult to actually enact and is dependent on the conductor or the band leader to be able to facilitate that. But it may be something that you want to build into your practice and negotiate with your group. You'll find that rests like these can actually improve the quality of your group practices. I hope that this video is useful in helping you to think about your own practice circumstances and perhaps to help you pay more attention to these factors and have a more pain-free and injury-free playing experience. Now, I would love to hear from you and your thoughts on what reasons cause musicians to suffer performance-related injuries. So please leave a comment below and tell me about your own experiences and thoughts. Now, if you have a suggestion as to what you would like to see in this channel, please also contact me or leave me a message. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. So, I'll see you in my next video, and this is Chee-Wee signing out. Bye.